Changing careers can be a daunting task, and preparing for the journey even more so, as you consider the financial steps necessary to prepare for that switch and the emotional steps as you undergo the sacrifices necessary to make it happen. So, not everyone who starts down this path is successful. That's why today I'm talking with Sophie Leroi, who has over 20 years of experience in talent development, where most recently, as the Director of Career Services at Rhythm School, she helps career changers transition into the tech industry. So if you're considering changing careers, listen in for her top 10 questions to ask yourself before you make that switch. All right, Sophie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've had a chance to collaborate a few times in the past, so I'm glad we finally have a chance for you to kind of come on here and share your vision and perspective for how developers should be thinking about the career transition. But before we get into that, though, I like to first help our listeners understand your background and kind of the motivations behind your coaching philosophy and your perspective. So, can you give us a little bit more of a background into kind of who you are, what you do, and what those motivations are?
Sure. Yeah. Excellent. Well, let's see. I've been a coach for about 15 years now. And the reason I got into coaching is I think I've always been a very curious person and I've always liked change. I've had to change careers multiple times. I've had to change countries multiple times in my life. And it's always brought a lot of reflection, a lot of questions, a lot of thinking. And I thought this could also become my job because I love to ask people questions. So that's how I got into coaching. And one of the first things I read actually when I started my coaching training, I read this book called Time to Think. It's written by Nancy Klein. And basically, her principle is that the quality of actions, of our actions, depends first on the thinking we do behind them. So basically, the more you think about your goals, the more you think about the things you want to do in your life, the more successful you will be. And that's what it really resonated with me. That's what I've brought with me into my coaching. Every single coaching engagement I have, I start with reflection questions. Why are you doing this? What is your goal? What do you want to do? That's very first level. Most people think, okay, what is my goal? What do I want to do next? And then most of the time, that's where you'll stop and you won't dig a little deeper. You won't ask yourself questions like, why is this a good goal for me? Right? What's in it for me? How is this going to be a good choice for my career, for my life? And really, this applies to any type of transition. It's the new career, the new industry, the new job. Do I want to become a manager? Do I want to be with that person? Do I want to move to this country? Right? It doesn't just apply to work.
Yeah,
So that's how it all started, and that's how I've been coaching for the past 15 years.
and that perspective is, I know we're talking about entry level software developers here, but that's a tension I've felt in the last few years for myself because it's so easy to just get on the path that the company wants, your manager wants, and you become an expert in a particular skill or technology that maybe isn't long-term aligned with your career goals, but is kind of expedient in the moment in the role that you're at. And then you become an expert in a technology stack that you couldn't care less about. And then,
Yes,
what do you do then? So that thoughtfulness, that intentionality is really something that's probably valuable at any stage you are in your career.
absolutely. It's really all about you. Again, why is this a good goal for myself? How is it going to support me? What can I contribute? And what I can contribute, does it fit with my interests, my values, etc.? I'll talk to you about a few questions you can ask yourself to really get in that reflection.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I just want to make sure that that book that you mentioned, Time to Think, I'll make sure there's a link in the description if anybody wants to kind of
Perfect.
read through that and get understand that as well. All right. So, yeah, what does that mean then for early career software engineers or those that are trying to change careers to get into software engineering?
Yeah, so it means something a little different in 2023, 2024. It didn't used to be this way. Most people, I've been coaching in the bootcamp space for almost 10 years. And it used to be easier. It used to be, oh, I want to become a software engineer. Great. I'm going to do a bunch of things to become an engineer. I'm going to self-study. I'm going to watch YouTube videos, tutorials, and then I'm going to join this boot camp and I'm going to be for 3 months, heads down, I'm going to learn the skills and then we'll see, right? I have no idea where I'll be, what kind of job will find me, the type of people I'll work with. But I know it's possible. A lot of people are doing it at the moment. That's what I want to do too. That was 2016 to 2021, 2022. Today, it's a lot more difficult. Today, it should sound like, okay, I want to become a software engineer. Why do I want to become a software engineer? Why is this important to me? Do I think I have the skills necessary to become a successful software engineer? What does it even mean to be a software engineer? I'm coming from this different industry. I'm using different language. I've talked to different people. I've done completely different things. And I have this goal to enter this new profession, but I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, all they may know is, hey, I hear it pays well. You can work
Right?
from home.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, why not? And
I'll
then
have a computer. I'll have 2 screens, 3 screens.
yeah,
And then, I can work flexible hours.
and then all of a sudden, halfway through, let's say a web development boot camp, they realize I don't really like web development.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, and then what do
Or
you do
I
then?
don't actually like the amount of collaboration or communication that it actually involves, because it's not going to be just me and my computer, right? It could be a million different things, but they don't see, they don't know, and that's perfectly normal. They don't know what it actually looks like. So you really want to spend the time thinking about what it could be, doing the research, talking to people, right?
Yeah.
Do I think I have the strengths based on that, based on everything I'm learning? Do I think it's a good choice for me? And what can I give them? Am I a good fit for this industry? What can I contribute?
Yeah, it's hard because you don't know what you don't know. We talk about that a bit here in
Yeah.
previous episodes of the podcast, but so many people think of web development when they think of software engineering, but there are so many different languages and niches there. There's even non-technical roles on a software engineering team, analyst or product management, project management, testing. So instead of just jumping into like a generic, web development bootcamp, maybe it's first to spend some time in exploring what are the other kind of tangential careers in technology that may actually be a better fit for you. So you mentioned though earlier that you had some questions that you typically walk through with people that are trying to change careers that you consider are important for them to kind of self-evaluate and direct that path. Can we walk
Yeah.
through some of those questions?
Yeah. I have a list here of 10 questions that I usually ask people. There are many more, and it's going to largely depend on who am I speaking with. So really, the intention behind these questions is to facilitate the reflection that people would normally not do on their own. And the intention is, because there are so many questions, it's really to slow them down. Before you take that leap of faith, before you start taking action, I want you to slow down and think about this choice and be able to answer the question, is this the right choice? Is this the right time? Is this the right place? And the first question I ask is, what is your motivation to change your situation? And it's not just why do you want to become a software engineer? It's what is going on in your life that makes you think you should start doing something else?
Yes,
Is there something happening at the moment that you're trying to run away from?
sure.
Or is this something you're seeing as a possibility that you're running towards because that's the thing you really, really want?
Oh man, I feel like I should have had that question earlier in my career because I changed jobs a couple of times and roles too, but I had some bad habits of being like a people pleaser, wanting to be the hero. So I was constantly burning myself out, and it wasn't until 3 jobs into software engineering where I realized that it's not the job that's stressful. Like I am creating my own stress.
Yeah,
So just changing jobs and trying to run away isn't solving anything unless I address that root, like behavioral issue that I had.
exactly. And you bring up a very important point. It's the fact that you have to think about those things on your own. You want to avoid the external influence as much as possible, at least at the beginning of the reflection. What does it really mean for me, right? And honestly, that's why you want to sit with just yourself. Honestly, is there something that I'm running away from? Is there something that I believe I can be free of if I go to this new place? But you want to check that the new place, there isn't a risk that you'll find that thing again, right? So it's really a personal reflection. You sit with a question, you think with yourself, and then you talk to other people.
Sure. Okay, that's a great starter question. So after they kind of figured that out, what's the next question?
So the next question, and again, it's not necessarily, I need to ask myself this question first, and then I can move on to the second question, and then I can move on to the third. It's really where your reflection takes you. The second good question to ask is, what do I want to leverage my courage towards? It's a very unique, unusual question. Most people go, like you're doing, what does she mean? I've identified the thing that I want, and I know why I want this thing. Now, I know it's not going to be easy. And I know the root cause of wanting the change. What is it that I will need to invest my energy in? I've done my research. I've learned a ton of things about the software engineering space. I've also started thinking about, how do I get there? I've done my research about boot camps. How difficult is this going to be for me? What parts of this journey are going to be easy and what parts are going to be very difficult? And I know myself, I know certain things will be, super easy. Some things might be very challenging. So I need to know where I'll have to push myself outside of my comfort zone and where I'll feel more comfortable. So my courage, my drive, it's really the pockets of this experience where I'll need to challenge myself.
So to make sure I'm understanding correctly, it's identifying, maybe an example would be better. Like I may not, there's a series of things on a scale of what will be easy for me to do versus what's going to be really hard to do. And I'm choosing the battles that I'm willing to take. So if for example, moving to another state might be something that's out of my realm of courage, and I want to find something that's more local. And then I'm just kind of identifying all these different opportunities and then just defining what's more like within my grasp that I'm willing to take. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, you are. There's also an idea of being able to identify what efforts are going to be helpful and where you potentially can waste your energy. Now, this is very difficult when you don't know much about the thing or the industry or the boot camp. You have to start experiencing it to really understand where you're going to have to make an effort. And that's where you want to really enlist the help of other people. You can't do it on your own.
Okay.
But you're self-aware, so you know where it's going to be easy and where it's going to be tough.
Sure. And really, you only know what your struggles are and what your strengths are. So that's a decision you'd have to make. So after you've identified that, kind of what's the next layer?
All right. So I know more about what's going to happen. What lights me up? What things do I really like doing? What puts me in a state of flow in my life? Where do I gravitate? What things do I tend to enjoy? What are things that make me lose a sense of time? Where is going to be all the positives, right? And then what positives and what passions do I have that I can bring into this new career with me? The foundation for the successful transition, because if you don't have that strong interest, or, if you don't have the natural talents that are necessary to be a successful software engineer in that case, then it's going to be a bit more challenging.
I just want to say this is more abstract than saying I like a specific language or specific technology. If I'm hearing you correctly, this is more of just I like being with people, so I'm going to look for roles where I get to talk a lot, or I'm more of a isolated.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I love it when I'm presented with a challenge and it takes me a couple of hours to figure it out and it's tough and I don't know what to do and I don't have an answer. Or I love to navigate ambiguity. I'm tasked with a thing. I'm given very little directions, and I have to cope. I have to handle this thing on my own.
All right. So then after you've identified what gives you that light, that energy, but what's the next layer there to unpack?
The next thing is understanding where you're really, really great. What am I really good at? It's not a question we ask ourselves every day because I think we haven't been raised that way. We don't really take time to think about our superpowers, and we don't, or maybe we do, but we don't want to talk about them because it sounds like we're bragging. But it's important to know your strengths, especially coming into a new industry and a new role where you have to use new skills. You need to build the self-confidence, and you need to start with the skills you already have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be successful in that career transition, you cannot ignore everything you've done in the past.
And
the choices you've made. Yeah.
And some of the pain point I felt in my career that this is really resonating with me is I feel like most performance reviews that I've had, and I've been doing software development for 12 years, is typically what are you doing poorly and how you can improve that. That's my annual performance review at work. It's like, here's where you kind of suck, and let's find opportunities to make you better. Whereas your approach is like, let's talk about the things that you are great at, and let's find ways to do more of those great things.
Absolutely.
A lot more of a positive outlook.
Absolutely. I think every single performance review should start with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
But not just in the past year, right? In general, in life, what are you really good at? You, Eric, you're a very unique person. You're the only Eric Anderson on this planet. You become a software engineer. Okay, great. What is it that's unique about you? I want to hire you on my team because, yeah, you can do the software engineering stuff. Other people in the room can. But I think you're going to be doing it differently because you have different experiences, you have different backgrounds, you have different strengths. What are your skills? What are your natural abilities? What's special about you, right? What's not your technical superpower, but your human superpower?
You don't have a differentiator if you ignore those strengths, because then you just look like every other entry-level candidate in a sea of applicants. Why choose you over anybody else if you don't emphasize those strengths?
Yeah. And within those strengths, you have the ones that are very unique, and they don't necessarily need to exist in the software engineering space, but they still make you a very unique person. And then there's all the skills that will make you an even better software engineer. If you're a very social, outspoken colleague, if you are a connector, chances are you're going to be a strong voice on your engineering team. You're going to be reaching out to other people. It's going to be great to pair program with you. It's going to be exciting to try and find a solution for things because you have that ability to communicate very well. So that's an example of a skill that we call sometimes portable or transferable.
Great. So then what would be the next question that somebody should consider?
Great. So we're still thinking about who we are, right? And the next thing is, what's important to me? What are my values? We talk about values, but really it's those things that are very important to you. And those things are going to be your North Star. It's your guide to understanding if this next step is the right step for you. For example, one of my values is curiosity. I want to keep learning. Is this something I can find when I become a software engineer? Probably, right?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yes.
Lots of examples, but what is very important for me in my life, but also in my work, and we spend so much time at work that it's really important for us to find those values in the people we work with, the cultures, the environments we work with.
Especially when it comes to the job interview, they say that it's, yes, the company's interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them to make sure that this is a place that you would like to be long-term, ideally.
Yes. There's actually, there's a job board called Key Values, which basically forces you to select organizations or jobs based on your values and your interests. What are things that you want to find in this next role? The non-negotiable, the work-life balance, the maybe the type of product you're going to be working on, your colleagues, what kind of people are you working with? I'm going to use these as my filters. I'm not using filters as it's part-time versus full-time, or it's remote, or it's 1 or 5 years of experience.
Mhm.
No, it's the things that matter to me. What companies are like me? Where are these people?
I mean, they say the average software developer changes jobs like what, every year, every 18 months. But hopefully, if your values are aligned, you can stay there much longer. So it's in the company's
That
best
is the
interest
hope.
too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Sophie, I've lost track of what question we're on. Honestly.
That's
Well,
okay.
yeah, that
It's
was
a lot of questions.
yeah. Well, so what number was that last one?
That was number 5,
Number 5. Okay. All right. So halfway through.
halfway through.
What is number 6 then? After you've identified your values.
Number 6 is what has been my work journey so far? What choices have I made? Where have I worked? It can even start before work in the choices you made as what did I want to study at school? It's what choices have I made and where has this taken me? Do I tend to stay in one job for X amount of years, or do I need to change jobs every couple of years? Because I'm a very curious person, do I see that I tend to get bored very quickly and I need to challenge myself every couple of years or so? What's my pattern?
Okay. And that the idea being that if you stay with your pattern, you'll be more likely to be successful. Is that the?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Then you have your pattern. Okay, but a lot of people will realize a lot of things at that stage and they'll think they need to challenge themselves. So the next question you ask is, okay, do I want to continue this, or do I want to break this pattern? Do I want to break this cycle? And it also depends what stage you're at in your life. What is it that you need? Do you need to keep challenging yourself? Do you need stability? That's
You're
going to
married. You have
influence,
kids now.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. It
that
will
makes sense.
influence the type of companies you talk to and the type of jobs that you're interested in.
So what? So then to rephrase, yeah, what worked for you in the past may not necessarily work for you in the future, and that's kind of the natural tension is stepping out of your comfort zone of what you used to do, what you
Yeah.
knew. If
Yeah.
you need to change to align with your like long-term goals.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what's the next question then? So you said that was 2,
The
right?
next,
Was that 6 and 7?
no, that was just
That was just
6.
6.
This
Okay.
was
All right.
6 and 6B. 7 is how do I define success? What does it mean for me, to be successful with this career transition? But then once I'm on the roll, what does successful look like after 6 months, after a year? How will I know I have made the right career decision? Right? Sometimes in interviews, it's a question you can ask your interviewer. How will I know that you've made the right hiring decision? How will I know I've made the right career choice for myself? Um, and then it's related to the earlier question, what's my motivation to change my situation? What am I running towards? What do I want to get? What's important for me to be successful? Is it more money? Is it a job where I can challenge myself more? I can learn more? Do I feel like I've hit a ceiling? Do I need to be intellectually challenged? So what does it mean for me to be successful? It's not necessarily more money. It could be more
Yeah.
skills.
Well, I like what you said
Um,
early on there, where you said, "Hey, 6 months, a year out, how would I know if I was successful?" Because I think a lot of people index a lot on money, and sometimes for entry level software developers, that first job isn't going to be the most lucrative. So maybe, and maybe I'm speaking for you. Stop me if I'm wrong, Sophie. But maybe you get that first job, and maybe your second job, your third job after that. Right, once you have some experience, you can now charge a higher bill rate and make more money. So it's not necessarily what's going to make you successful in that first job, but maybe X number of years out, what does success look like? And then you're focused more on that long term definition of success as opposed to like a short term grab.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's the most important question of all the questions that I'm sharing with you today. It's probably the most important in a job search. And we know that it takes people a long time to find jobs at the moment. You want to start being successful before you find that job. And defining success is, okay, I'm taking the steps, I'm joining this boot camp. Great, it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to succeed. I'm graduating. Then I want to keep being successful before I get an offer. What do I need to do to find success from first month of job search? And being successful is going to be probably you want to start being an engineer as soon as you can. So you're going to build things that you're excited about, and it's your decision, right? It's not someone else telling you what you have to do. You're going to be successful because you take an idea and then you turn it into something, and that's wonderful. You're going to be successful because you're going to be networking and connecting with people and volunteering and, et cetera, et cetera. That's success. When does success happen to me? It's not just how do I define it, but when am I going to be successful?
I like the approach of not determining or not setting your success to some mystical future date, though. You can have success every day if you're doing what's necessary right now in the current stage of life that you're in. And this,
Yeah.
like the level of positivity that brings into your life when you just reframe your journey. You're not just successful when you're hired. You're successful when you're an engineer, and you can do that right away. I love that perspective.
Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah.
So that was number 7. Number 8 is, what do I need to be successful? And who do I need to be successful? It's all the things that I need to do to reach my goal. We've talked a little bit about things you can do before getting a job, but it's not just that. During a boot camp, what will need to happen so that I'm successful? I'm going to have to spend less time with my friends and rely more on the people around me. Who do I need to have around me to be successful? Do I have enough people around me in my life who care about me and what I do? Can I tell them about what I do? How much? Right? So it's me primarily, but not only. So what else needs to be around for that success to happen?
I know we talked about earlier about the importance of approaching those first initial questions, at least kind of on your own, to determine what your values and things are. You don't want to be too influenced by somebody else. But at this state here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like just mentorship is really going to play an important role here. Kind of
Yeah.
understanding what are all of the different things that need to be considered to be successful. And if you're not in the field, you may not necessarily know what those are up front.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring this up because it's probably the number one thing every software engineer job seeker should do is to seek mentorship. The earlier you start, the better. And then you can learn so much out of these conversations and relationships. You will ultimately become a mentor yourself. So you have to experience it as soon as you can. Mentorship is a great example. Volunteering is another great example. But it's not just the things you need to do in your job search. It's the people you need to surround yourself with to make sure that it's, again, a positive experience.
And in each episode lately, I've been trying to add links to different free resources, tools, whatever, to help with the job search. One of them is mentorship. There are a few companies and resources I recommend. So I'll include that in the show notes if anybody's looking if they're struggling trying to find a good mentor from it at this time.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Number 9. Number 9 is it clear to me? Do I have a clear vision of what I want next? So this question should happen toward the end of the reflection. You've thought about all the other questions. Now you should have a clearer idea of what it is you want or need. And if it's not the case, then I'll challenge you to rethink and maybe realize that you have to go in a different direction. Because if it's not clear to you, then it's maybe a sign that you're not ready or you don't have everything you need to be successful.
And these are steps that you take before you make any big formal commitments, like putting down money for higher education, right? For example.
Yeah.
Which is going back to kind of the earlier conversation. Not everybody needs to be a web developer that uses JavaScript and React or whatever, which is the most common languages right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. During this investigation, maybe you've identified that, a product management role might be better fit for you. And you kind of go back then to the beginning of the process with that lens and start over. So this is feeling very iterative. So don't expect to just go through it once.
Absolutely. And you'll need to do that several times in your life because you change.
Yeah, your life
You have
situation
more
changes. Yeah, married, kids, whatever.
yeah, and then you grow, you learn new things, you gain new skills, different things light you up.
Mhm.
Your values, they don't really change, but you may learn that you changed so much that now something else is more important to you.
And if we're talking about career changes here, if you're working at company A, their values I think might change. That might be too strong of it, but the people that you work with might change, and the
Hmm.
experience you're having at that employer is thus changing. Your responsibilities are changing, so there might
Absolutely.
so they might have when you first got hired there, your values may have aligned, but maybe there's been a drift there, and that's what's causing you to
Maybe.
have to reevaluate.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a clear vision, then the last question you ask yourself is, am I ready for the ride? Right.
And
Am I going to enjoy this?
And that's just like not just emotionally ready, right? Like financially ready. I'm assuming like if
Mm-hmm.
you need to have some savings here, you mentioned people are
Yeah.
in software development. It's taking them a while to get jobs right now.
Yes.
So you have to make sure your partner is ready if you're in a relationship. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
But
hopefully that set of questions is helpful in making a decision that's the right decision for you at this time.
I love it. I think so. I've not walked through these 10 steps specifically with any of my mentees, but anecdotally,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the ones that have done something comparable have been the most successful. I have worked with individuals who've just, hey, I hear programmers make a lot of money. They throw down $10,000, for a boot camp, halfway through hate it, and then now they're, unemployed or never finished the boot camp and
Yeah.
still kind of wandering, right? And I feel bad for those folks. No matter how
Yeah.
much I try to help them, I I can't help you if you don't first like want to be helped, or if you're excited about the vision for the future that
Yeah.
of the path that you're on.
Yeah. I think that's the key to a successful change, whatever change we're talking about, is am I ready for this?
Mhm.
Like it's the same with coaching. Sometimes I meet potential clients and somewhere in that conversation, I hear that they're not ready to be coached. They're not ready to listen. They're not ready to be flexible. And I prefer to tell them, I'm not going to coach you.
Yeah, I can't help
You
you.
can come
Yeah,
back in a year or two, but I'm not going to coach you today. Or maybe someone else is a better fit for you.
sure.
But
Yeah,
I think you're not ready for that process.
absolutely. So thank you for coming on and walking through those 10 steps. I think most of the people that I interact with are career transitioners or from non-traditional backgrounds trying to create a better life for themselves. And I'm confident that if they walk through a series of steps like this, they'll be able to kind of define what that future looks like for them. Even if it's not software engineering, I still wish them the best of luck down that path.
Same.
So, Sophie, as we wrap up here, I want to give you a chance to kind of speak to any programs, resources, tools that you think help developers in the entry level market try to find their first job. I know you are part of the Rhythm bootcamp staff. You are
Mhm.
a coach as well. Can you give a background to any of the programs that they do or any other resources that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're considering becoming a software engineer, you want to do it in an environment that really is very curious about who you are. So you don't want to be a number in a large cohort. You want to be seen and you want to be understood and you want your instructors to ask you all of these questions. So that's what we do at Rhythm. We're very intentional bootcamp. We create very intentional individual relationships with every single student. And we'll ask them these questions at the beginning of the process. That's actually part of the required pre-work. It's not technical work, but it's very important. We'll ask you again during the program. And then I'm coaching people post-graduation, and I usually come back to these questions in my conversations. Everything they do for their job search, I'll say, why? Why are you doing this? What's the point? Do you think it's going to help you? So it's a whole process. And if you join us, you're guaranteed to get that attention and that support. So hopefully we know things are tough, but we ease the pain as much as we can, and we really want every single student to be successful. Um, I also coach on the side with a coaching organization called Ama Vida. And the work we do there is a lot more varied than what I do in the boot camp. We coach a lot of people who come from very different industries at very different levels in their career. What I do with Ama Vida is coaching transitions. Always, that's my niche. So from one industry to another, or from one role to another, from being an individual contributor to becoming a manager. And I use the same framework and the same principle I was discussing at the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on for the Rhythm School or this ML Vita coaching. I'll include links in the description as well if anybody's interested in following up with you
Thank
to
you.
learn more details about this questions, kind of the program that you have.
Perfect.
Well, Sophie,
you,
thank
Eric.
you so much for coming on.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Junior Jobs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember to like and subscribe, as that helps us reach more developers in need. And don't forget to check the show notes for details on today's sponsor and other job search services that we provide.